These are the American auto shows of the 1950s. This is where the battleground unfolded, where the automobile corporations Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors fought for every customer. To sell, you have to surprise, impress, and offer the best. They sought incredible approaches to get buyers to choose their cars over those of the competition. It was at one of these exhibitions that the future American legend was showcased. Welcome to a new video. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe to our channel. It's free. Now, let's get started. Eldorado in Spanish culture and the American car in Spanish culture. Eldorado was a mythical country, and whoever found it would find untold treasures. The land of Eldorado would make one fantastically rich. But the Americans, as we can see, had already found everything and exhibited it as an incredibly beautiful prototype car at the Motorama exhibition. This impressive sales strategy was adopted by many car manufacturers in the United States. And the Eldorado, as its name suggests, was truly remarkable. The car was enormous in size, notable for its large and luxurious interior, with an abundance of chrome, both inside and out. It featured unusual elements such as a panoramic windshield. While most cars would have a familiar windshield pillar, Cadillac forced itself to draw attention to itself with this design. The windshield design was intended to be both stylish and comfortable. And as explained, traffic lights were more visible through this type of glass when the car was at an intersection. The Eldorado was quickly prepared for mass production in the US. There was no question of whether people would like the car. It was immediately put into production. Moreover, the car was based on the already established convertible Series 62 model. It had 210 horsepower under the hood and, naturally, an automatic transmission. Inside, everything was a matter of what any buyer could dream of. The cost of the car alone was by no means small, even for wealthy Americans. $7,750, which was equivalent to almost 30 times the average monthly salary of the time. We're talking the 1950s. And yet there was a lot to be said for investing that kind of money in a luxury convertible body measuring over 5.5 meters in length, with a 5.4-liter V8 engine under the hood, a leather interior, electric windows, a radio, and beautifully shaped white-walled tires. Everyone was delighted with the wheels and elements such as the very fashionable shell replicas. These protrusions on the bumpers were conical in shape. At the front of the car were shell-like casings. Jokingly, the bumpers were named Dagmar, after an actress of that time with that pseudonym, who possessed beautiful shapes. I don't think it's necessary to explain exactly what shapes these elements were named after. And of course, everyone loved the panoramic windshield. The other cars, lacking such a beautiful feature, instantly became obsolete and uninteresting. Many car manufacturers attempted the same effect, later borrowing it or simply stealing this design technique. Cadillacs began using panoramic windows in their cars. The Cadillac Eldorado surprised and set a trend, and even President Eisenhower took advantage of this trend. On January 20, 1953, U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower arrived at his inauguration, not on a white horse like his predecessors, but in a snow-white Eldorado, which was very beautiful. A reception that many would remember for a long time. But the Eldorado's price was high. In the first year of production, it was impossible to sell it in large numbers. Only 532 owners were happy with such an incredible purchase. No wonder Cadillacs were never cheap. After all, it was the highest class of automobiles. Anyone who had achieved great success considered it their duty to acquire a Cadillac, which was a sign of success, a personal reward. And how wonderful it is if you are also famous. Everything is incredible. Automatically, if it's hot, you open the window with the click of a button. And if it's cold, you turn on the heater. There's a small knob marked hot. And if it's neither hot nor cold, you press the button marked average. Innovation and competition in the 1950s. The 1950s were a truly incredible time for American automotive. Models underwent restyling almost every year. Every year, to remain relevant, all companies made changes to both the appearance and specifications of their cars. Cadillac also acted in this direction. Brands always had to be the best. The company believed it was possible to outperform the competition. The main task of each car manufacturer, among American brands, was always a true arms race. The company decided that a 210 horsepower engine for a 270 horsepower Giant was sufficient for those who wanted even more power. The luxurious Eldorado could be equipped with two high-performance 4-chamber carburetors that increased power up to 300 horsepower. A convertible is suitable. Elegant coupes could be ordered, but the weather wasn't good everywhere in the US, so something incredible began to circulate with the car bodies. Cadillac designers gradually moved away. Soon, so-called shark wings or fins began to appear on the rear of the cars. Oh, if only anyone knew where all this would lead in the future. But for now, the designers were drunk with success with the Eldorado. A year later, we decided, Cadillac. Our cars are the most luxurious in all of America. There is only leadership here. Cadillac's leadership in the luxury car class was soon threatened. Ford put on display a very serious competitor, its majestic and monumental Lincoln Continental Mark II. It wasn't just a luxury, it was a proper luxury. Automatic transmission, power steering and windows, hand-assembled body, air conditioning, very expensive special leather brought from Scotland, and a massive 300 HP V8. This Titan clearly became a luxury that didn't belong in existing Cadillacs. The Continental Mark II became the most expensive car model in America, costing almost $10,000, which was the price at the time of a very nice house. But what challenge was that? Cadillac wasn't about to relinquish its leadership. And in just 2 years they rolled out a response. The Cadillac Eldorado Brougham, 5 meters long and over 2 meters wide, had a 4-door body packed with every possible innovation. For this Eldorado, it wasn't just about defeating the Lincoln Mark II. It had to completely destroy it and alienate customers. The body was quickly distinguished by its dimensions. The chrome elements, as always, caught the eye first. The doors were striking. If the front ones opened the usual way, the rear ones opened in the opposite direction. And to top it all off, there wasn't even a center pillar, which made access to the rear seats much easier. Such strange doors used to be called suicide doors. The Eldorado Brougham, of course, was equipped with excellent locks. Yes, and the rear door was impossible to open without first opening the front door. The Eldorado literally included every technology available at General Motors at the time. The Ney electric power steering with memory that moved back and forth when entering and exiting the car. A transistor radio with automatic antenna, electric trunk heating, automatic seat adjustment, high beams, air conditioning, leather upholstery, sheepskin rugs, and not to mention the little things like cigarette cases, cups with magnets on the bottom, or a leather-bound notebook. There was plenty to add to the effect. Each car was specially equipped with a very expensive handbag made by Carroll, containing lipstick, powder, a comb, and a bottle of perfume. The most expensive car and the race for exclusivity, the final nail in the competitor's coffin, had to be the air suspension. Thanks to it, a fantastic ride smoothness was achieved. And everything the Eldorado Brougham put on the shoulders of literally everyone. But the price was the price of luxury. The powerful V8 behemoth also cost a staggering $13,000. For illustrative purposes, this was equivalent to 42 average US salaries, or 3 more affordable and simple Cadillacs. Well, or for example, the price of this car was even more expensive than a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Or, in modern money, it would cost $140,000. Ultra rugged, it not only defeated its rival model, but at what price in this arms race? Lincoln lost $1,000 on each vehicle. And it's rumored that Cadillac lost as much as $10.00 on each vehicle produced. Both companies sold these machines at a loss. All for the simple reason of being first in the American market and out of a desire to destroy their competitors. Both companies, Lincoln and Cadillac, soon abandoned such unreasonably high prices for their models, as this could lead to the collapse of both companies. Having played with pathos and excessive, unjustified luxury, Cadillac planned to launch a new generation of the Eldorado. Cadillac cars should always be spectacular and futuristic. And this model was no exception. The rocket design era and the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado. The 1959 Cadillac Eldorado is pure madness. The apotheosis of the so-called battle for space-age car design. The space race between the two powers led to a surge in popularity for all things space. Elements such as tails and wings, or air intake nozzles, were increasingly used in the design of concept cars. Those years were absolutely incredible. But production cars weren't far behind either. Cars from Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors broke the chains and tried to outdo each other with spectacular design solutions. For example, the rear ends of the cars took on the shape of a rocket tail. the lights began to mimic a rocket exhaust. But those same fins, similar to aircraft stabilizers, grew larger and larger every year. Cadillac models had the largest tailpipes, and the new 59 Eldorado ignored the size of these tailpipes, literally, of all the others. The engine power of its competitors was 345 horsepower, enough to accelerate a car weighing 2.3 tons in 10 seconds. But despite all its speed, the Eldorado's silhouette wasn't for sport, it was for rolling majestically through the streets. That's what any Cadillac should offer. Automatic air conditioning, very soft air suspension. All this only promotes measured driving. Cadillac stood out for its rocket style, shape, huge rear overhangs, and enclosed wheels. This solution gave it swiftness and elegance. The car was fairly judged by the dimensions of the hood and trunk. According to the designers, the length of the cabin was unthinkable compared to the length of the trunk and hood. At first glance, it seemed small, but considering the car's dimensions of almost 6 meters, there was plenty of room in the cabin. Even the solid front sofa could comfortably fit 3 people. The length of the space under the hood was such that you could enter with a whistling sound. Not only a V8, but also a V12. And the surprising thing is that this engine was considered for installation in the Eldorado. In the late 1950s, American car manufacturers were still losing their minds. There's no other way to put it. Competition led to a constant race not only in design but also in power. Everyone wanted more power because gasoline was no more expensive than water. 300 and even 350 horsepower for such a large and heavy vehicle. There probably weren't many cars or V12s. As everyone thought, he could solve this problem and surpass his eternal competitor, the Lincoln Continental. At age 59, Cadillac began developing the V12 with a 7.4-liter capacity and ended up with a monstrous 8.2-liter capacity, producing power in the region of 400 horsepower and 500 torque. I remember this was in the late 1950s. This titan of Izmir engines was planned to be installed in the next generation Eldorado. But, to their great regret, emissions restrictions, problems with the new Eldorado's cross-country ability, and the engine's high cost prevented the idea from being implemented. Owners weren't particularly upset, however. Cadillac successfully developed its magnificent V8, with a steady increase in power. The Eldorado. From innovation to extreme luxury, the Eldorado was waiting for a revolution. The new generation of the Eldorado changed dramatically on a technical level. It became front-wheel drive, and the design became more strict. The huge rear fenders were a thing of the past, and regular, non-panoramic windows were back in fashion. Cadillac used a stylish blind look on the Eldorado, where the headlights were hidden behind removable covers. In the late 1960s and 1970s, something very unusual became fashionable, a phenomenon in the automotive world: vinyl roofs. Cadillac is credited with making this finishing method fashionable. Automotive vinyl is a synthetic material consisting of a mixture of polymer rubber, resins, special adhesives, paints, and plastics used for sewing clothing, shoes, and accessories like handbags. It was adapted for car roofs to give the car even more luxury. The material's properties cover the steel roof. Originally, it was made to mimic a convertible. The vinyl was supposed to be removable like a convertible top, but it later became a standalone styling solution for luxury cars. Almost all expensive American cars of that era began to sport this type of roof. People were delighted. What else? What remained unchanged in the new Eldorado was its enormous size, the unparalleled luxury of the interior, and its power. The Cadillac was supposed to be the most powerful American premium car, and that meant that under the hood was a 400 horsepower, 8.2-liter monster with torque that would be sufficient always and everywhere. 0 to 100 km/h in 8 seconds with a weight of almost 2.5 tons. It was one of the most powerful engines installed in production at the beginning of the 1970s. There was no luxury to be desired in the Eldorado, and there was always enough power. The car was still bought by celebrities, show business figures, and millionaires. But as popularity among many clients grew, special, one might say specific, requests arose. And we fulfilled these requests with great pleasure. A rapidly growing tuning studio, the owner of the Tag Heuer watch brand, millionaire Joseph, decided to turn his newly acquired office into an Eldorado. He demanded that it include tables, telephones, a television, and a luxurious chair for himself and his secretaries. To meet all the clients' wishes, the car was sold, rebuilt, and seriously modernized. It later turned out that the mass had gone too far. For a 3-ton car, they decided to add another axle. The 70s were the era of color tuning, and the 6-wheeled Eldorado was by no means a record. The 8-wheeled kit from the Knight Rider series and the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And here, once again, deciding to create something that will leave everyone speechless, Jay buys 2 Cadillac Eldorados, and using custom welding and extensions, creates a unique frame that turns 2 Eldorados into a 30-meter limousine, with 2 engines, one in its usual place and the other closer. This monster is controlled by the rear axles, and has 2 drivers, the second sitting in the back of the limousine. All axles, except the center ones, rotate, so that at least somehow this absurdity can be controlled. The cabin's design, in addition to the endless leather sofas, features enormous televisions, a bed, an outdoor sun deck, a jacuzzi, a pool with a ski jump, a golf course, and a helicopter pad. He was clearly in good shape when he designed his new creation. As was immediately clear, the car turned out to be a pure show car and unsuitable for normal roads. It had to be transported long distances in sections on gun carriages. Navigating most corners with this car is impossible. The American dream, as Jay Orberg calls it, is designed for special purposes. Festivals, exhibitions, advertising assignments. This is where it works, but still, the main goal was to enter the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's longest car. As you can imagine, it certainly accomplished this task. We've reached the end of this video. Comment in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell to enjoy future videos like this one. See you next time.